Hello, everyone. Hi, Amal. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. Moms, dads, guidance, caregivers, everyone that has joined us on this session. We're so happy to have you here. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. Today, we'll be looking at a very critical issue. We have interacted with several parents, and from their concerns that they shared with us, protecting our children from abuse has been a major concern that is shared. And we saw the need to have this session for parents. To address that topic today, we'll be looking at some critical areas, such as, I'll be taking us through a quick look on the session overview. Today, we'll be looking at the various forms of abuse, how to prevent abuse, what are the warning signs of abuse, what to do in the case of abuse, how to identify a predator, and a lot of other issues. To take us into the session today, we have a special guest. She is an educationist and a life coach. She is the Associate Senior Pastor of the Fountain of Life Church, Lagos, Nigeria. She ministers a message of hope to her congregation and women around the world. She is the founder of a children's foundation called Funda Wazi, which means learn and know in her native Zulu language. She's passionate about building wholesome and integrated family life with focus on raising godly and socially responsible children and ministers. She's the author of several books, including some of the fast-selling children's books, such as No, Don't Touch Me There. I'm sure we have seen that book before. A lot of us have that book in our homes. A Bully is Not a Hero, and a lot of other books. Her ministry and message of hope to children and women span across several countries, which includes Nigeria, South Africa, Europe, and the United States of America. Moms, dads, caregivers, guidance, please join me as we welcome our special guest speaker for today, Pastor Nomthi Odukoya. Thank you, Pastor Nomthi. We're so happy to have you here today. Thank you, Ma, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be here, to be part of this wonderful session, talking about one of the things that touch everybody. Everybody is touched by this. We either know someone who has been through abuse, or we know someone whose child has been through abuse, one abuse or the other. So thank you so much, Ediri Sobande. I was asking my husband how to pronounce it, to pronounce your surname, because in my native language it would say Sobande. Sobande. I was like Sobande. Mm-hmm. so he said Sobande. I said okay, thank you. So lovely to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Happy to have you here.
For having me. And I was hearing our language, Yoruba.
Yes, we are. Yes, I just muted all the participants now, so we are fine.
Yeah, better. Like you rightly said, I'm a co-pastor of the Fountain of Life Church. So even though we're talking about preventing sexual abuse, protecting our children from abuse, I always like to refer to the Bible, which is our manual. And looking at Jesus himself in Luke chapter 4, verse 16, it says, he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. That's when, if you know the story, that's when he said who he was, that this scripture had come to fulfillment, had come to pass, because he's the one who was chosen. I'm not going to go in deep into that. But my point, why do I like this scripture? It is telling us where he grew up. So why is that important? It is important because everybody has a place where they grew up. And it says, and where he had been brought up, yes. And as his custom was. So wherever we grew up, or wherever children grow up, they will have some customs that they learn from that place where they grow up, from that environment that they grow up. For Jesus, it was going to the synagogue. For my home, maybe it's going to church. For other people, it's going to the mosque. For others, to be going nowhere, just staying home, always having fun, maybe having parties. That's a child's life. That's a child's history. When people are writing, or when that child is writing about their history, they would mention where I grew up, where I was brought up. This is what our custom was, to do this. So Jesus' custom was to go to the synagogue. So this is just to pose a question to all of us. What customs are our children learning or doing in our environments, in our home environments? Because there is a custom. What custom is it? So talking about sexual abuse, I also look at every home, that most times we have alarms, security alarms. Some homes have CCTV, to make sure that everything is safe around, the gates who's entering, especially here in Nigeria. I don't know about other countries. Some actually, I've seen some other countries, they would even have a sticker on their wall showing that this house is protected by this and this security company. So with that, I was really alarmed when I actually thought about it, that we put so many measures in place in our homes. We make sure that armed robbers or burglar, or whatever you call them in your country, don't break into your house. They don't break into your home. You put safety measures in place. So in the same manner, or even more, that's what we should do in our homes. We should place safety measures for our children, so that whilst they are growing up in this environment, whilst we're bringing them up in this environment, they'll be able to stand wherever they will be in future and say, this is how I was brought up. This is how things happen in my house. This is what happened, without having any form of shame. But unfortunately, not many can say they grow up without having any form of shame. They were shamed. There are different types. That's why our first thing is point is talking about the various forms of abuse, because we older generation, I am an older generation, whether I like it or not. Sometimes people now, I would just like to say, because I know many of you know I'm from South Africa. The school where I went to is a Christian school. At least I went there for 3 years, to the 3 years of my final high school years. And right now in South Africa, our school and the church where I went to is on the news about how children were abused. Well, I was amazed, because I think when I got there, many things were not being done. I never saw anyone being abused. Maybe I only saw one time where somebody was even giving some lashes. So I never saw it, but the stories I heard, I was afraid. Oh my goodness, I was there and so many things were happening and nobody ever spoke about them. Why? Because abuse always thrives in secrecy. Nobody ever talks about abuse. There are different forms of abuse. There is neglect. Well, that one, I think, is actually so major. Most people don't even realize that they are neglecting their children. Sometimes you can tell if a child is being neglected. Sometimes you can't tell, because a child could be growing up from a rich home, but they could be neglected emotionally. They are not given that time to talk to their parents, or they could be from a poor home. They are not even given food. Sometimes it's from a rich home. They're not even given food. I have stories of people who grew up from well-to-do families, but they were not fed, maybe in an unfortunate situation where they were raised by their step parents, and for some reason they didn't want to give them food. That's neglect. If a child is made to go hungry, to go without food, sometimes with not buying clothes for children, that's neglect. And people can identify that they were wearing torn clothes to school, sometimes not even washed. They could be smelling, and that leads to another form of abuse, like obviously bullying, because the other children will start bullying that kind of child in school. And the one that we are talking about, there are different types: emotional abuse, speaking to children anyhow. And why I was thinking about that, okay, then sexual abuse. But whilst I was thinking about that, I thought about the story in the Bible. There's a guy named Mephibosheth, and when they were running away, his nurse accidentally dropped him on the way, and he became lame on both his feet. Whilst I was reading it with the eye of abuse, I was like, this situation, you will not actually label it as abuse, because this nurse was trying to help. But why did she drop him? She didn't even mean to drop him, but she was fearing for her life as well. She was running away. And from that story, I realized that why people abuse children is because they have some fears in their lives. They are running away from something that also happened to them, and they're not fully capable of taking care of the children. But God gives children to anybody. In this instance of Mephibosheth, it was this nurse, because everybody had been killed. It was the situation was chaotic. So that's how some homes are. It could be because parents are fighting. So that's another type of abuse, domestic violence, because children are exposed to that type of violence. When a child is growing up to such a home, that child becomes lame in one area of their lives, because they are seeing what they are not supposed to see, seeing parents fighting, seeing parents abuse each other. Sometimes not only them fighting, they end up fighting the children. So there are a lot of things to say about different types of abuse, and what causes it is because the nurse, which could be a mother, which could be a father, which could be anybody that is molesting a child, that person is also dealing with something. If that nurse was dealing with something, also running for her life, and she made that mistake, somebody looking for a child somewhere right now is dealing with something, and they don't even, maybe sometimes they're not even aware. They're trying to save their child. In trying to save their child, they're even exposing them to more abuse. I just wanted to lay that foundation. So how do we prevent abuse? Talking about that, I want to also draw from the story from the Bible. And that one is in 2 Samuel chapter 13. It's the story of Amnon and Tamar. It's a well-known story. In fact, it's one of the stories that I read and I get offended as a woman. I'm like, I don't think the situation was fair here, but that's how things were in those days, and sometimes in some areas, that's how things still are. But it takes for programs like this, so that's why I commend you so much, Ediri, Sobande, for organizing these programs, so we can talk about these things and know about them. In fact, one of my passions is to talk to children themselves. I like talking to parents, but I like talking to children themselves, which informed the books I write for children. Because if Tamar had known about sexual abuse, she would have seen the signs that my brother is trying to do something. But she had no clue, just like everybody else who has ever been abused. Most times, they don't have a clue what is happening. They just find themselves in the situation. So how do you prevent it? by teaching the children, by talking about it. And not only in your household, not only talking to your children, talking for us who are in Africa. I don't know if in other areas they have domestic staff. For those who have domestic staff, talk to your children in front of the domestic staff so that they know that your children know, you know what I mean? Because if you talk to them only, maybe they might not have even that power to fight. But let everyone in the household, including the security guards, let them know what this household is about. And in areas where you have a driver, don't send, that's to prevent sexual abuse, do not send your children with the driver alone. Always have another adult. For example, I might not always be in the car with my children when they go to school or pick them up from school, but we'll always have an adult, we have a nanny taking them to school with the driver. It might not make sense to other people, but that's how it should be. It should not just be the driver and your child, or driver and your children. It should be another adult. And praying that then those adults, two adults, those don't also, start to collide against your child as well. But at least you would have put those preventative measures in place. So I always make an example of a skunk, that if you teach your children, you're giving them that poison, that poisonous smell. You know, a skunk has that bad smell. When they see danger, they start, they spray their poison in the air so that their enemy would be scared and stay away from them. So when we teach our children how to say no in such circumstances, we are giving them the power of a skunk. That's their no is the poison that they can use against any perpetrator. So the warning signs of abuse. I'm so sorry for my nose. I have been, it is not coronavirus by God's grace.
No, it's not.
But I've been battling with a bit of a cold. So the warning signs of abuse. Before I even get to that, we all know that there's a process which is called grooming, which perpetrators use to get their victims. And abuse can come from any home. Nelson Mandela is an international figure. The way it is, some people still think he's alive because he's still worshipped everywhere in the world. But his granddaughter was sexually abused right in his home. So it can be any home at all. Poor, doesn't matter your economic status. It can be from even if your home is, unfortunately, even if you're a pastor, even if you're an imam, it happens everywhere. In fact, even in church itself, the premises, it happens. It happens in school. It happens in places you would think children will be safe, but then unfortunately they are not safe. So it can happen anywhere, in any home at all. Look, this story I'm sharing here about Tamar and Amnon, it happened in the king's palace. This was a palace. I'm sure everybody wanted to be in that household, not knowing that Tamar was going through something. So it can happen anyway. It's not about having money or not having money. It can happen where human beings are and where human beings have issues. That thing can happen. So the grooming process, you can see in that story of Amnon and Tamar, that Amnon kind of groomed Tamar because through his dad, David, because that's what perpetrators do. They sometimes groom even the parents of a child so that parents are so at ease with them. They don't see anything wrong with this person hanging out with their child. By the way, it can be a male or female. It's not only male children that are female children that are being abused, even male children. Because one lady, actually, she was so shocked. She was abused as a child, So when she started having children, she protected her daughter so much. She even slept with her in their bedroom for a long time. She told me this. And she said, when she now heard that male children also can be abused, she cried. She's like, oh my goodness, did I expose my child? Did I expose my child? And also just briefly talking about that lady's story, she said she would always tell her mom that she didn't want to greet that uncle, but the uncle would always come to their house and the uncle would insist that she comes and sits on her lap. But she would always, be reluctant. And you know how it is. We sometimes trying to do good, push our children into doing things that go against them, that could even harm them. So that's what this happened to her. This uncle would always make her sit on his lap. I saw you disappeared, so I'm sure people can still hear me.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. So he would always make her. So when you see a child not being free around a certain individual, don't force that child to be in the same space as that individual. There could be something there. There could be something. And when you see a child obviously starting to be withdrawn, there are different things, because at first, when I first heard about or learned about sexual abuse, we were told, I was working as a teacher, and we were told to watch out for signs of withdrawal, maybe a child dropping in their grades. And obviously those are the signs, a child starting to wet themselves, whereas maybe they would have been fully potty trained, but all of a sudden they started regressing. But those were the signs we're looking for. But there was this girl in my class who suddenly started doing very well. And I'm always ashamed to share this story, that my colleagues and I doubted that she was abused. We heard that she was, but we doubted that she was. We were like, they say you start getting lower grades, you're getting distracted, but she's suddenly alert. Why is she suddenly getting everything? But that was her coping mechanism, because each person copes differently in different situations. I'm always like, oh my goodness, I just pray that God is taking care of that girl, because I believe we were also not well informed as teachers. We didn't know how to properly help children. We were only watching, and when we didn't see the signs that they had told us to watch for, we were not able to help that child, because this leaves scars forever. We already know. So many people are angry, and we never know why they're angry. It is obviously because of the scars that they had to incur at their young age. They were scarred. And they didn't have anyone talking them through it. Going back to our story of Amnon and Tamar. So that's how she was groomed, by Amnon asking her dad and his dad to have her come and cook for him. Who wouldn't like to cook for their older brother? You know, if you're a little girl and you have an older brother, you want to please your brother. You want to do, things that would make you that special. There were many princesses in the palace, but she felt like, I'm sure she felt like she was a special princess. Otherwise, why would her brother call her to come cook for her? And when she got there, there was everyone was there. She was cooking. And so the atmosphere must have been very good. That's what happens with grooming, giving a child gifts. And everybody would know, oh, you're giving this gift to this person. It's not even hidden. Well, there are times where you have to watch for unusual gifts that a child might get from some people. But most times, because it's usually people who are right at your face who would abuse your child, not you, in Jesus' name, it sometimes may miss the signs right in front of you, because this person is so trusted. The person can be a mother of the child. The person can be a father. The person could be the child's best friend. Many people, it was the children's best friend, and they would call them, they would seclude them and tell them that, they are special. They want to do something that can only be done to special children, or special girl, or special boy. And obviously, like I said, if a child has not been taught, the child would fall for it. There's so many stories and so many examples. And sometimes the parents, there's a lady who told me a story, a very sad story, that she was sexually abused by their own driver in the house. But because the body gets used to it, her body was longing for it. So the driver would always touch her inappropriately, and they would always hide in the corners. So one time her mom caught them whilst he was fondling with her. And her mom, from that day onwards, her mom started teasing her. I don't even know if it's teasing or whatever it's called, stupidity as far as I'm concerned now. Because each time that child, she would make a mistake. She would say, oh, you're thinking about Peter. Let's just say it's Peter. You're thinking about Peter. That's why you can't concentrate. That's why you're thinking about Peter. So the lady says she thankfully she went to the boarding school. That's where she had peace. And when she would go home for holidays, she was always dreading it. That, oh my goodness, I'm going home and I'm going to face this issue again of my mom and pulling my legs or teasing me. And I don't know why, whether she thought it was, I don't know what she thought it was really. I don't know why she found fun and pleasure in teasing her daughter. But obviously it's also ignorance, because she also did not know. So Tamar is cooking in the presence of everyone, just like grooming happens in the presence of everyone. And then eventually, it wasn't raising any eyebrows to say, okay, now everyone can leave. I just want to eat. He is a prince. Everything, made sense. So, okay, he now said, I want to eat from your hand. Let's go to the bedroom. It's her brother. So I've heard some people criticizing Tamar, saying, why would she do that? But that's her brother. It doesn't matter that he was a half brother, but was her blood brother. If you enter your brother's house, brother's bedroom, your brother enters your bedroom, though you enter anyhow. In fact, sometimes children don't even allow parents to enter their bedrooms, but they would allow their siblings easily. Because also, as far as I'm saying, that sexual abuse can also be perpetrated by siblings. It could be siblings. Why? Maybe the one sibling was exposed to it and they want to practice it on somebody close to them, which could be their sibling. And so that's why it's important to talk to the children. So it happened for Tamar. She begged him that they were in their time, obviously they were allowed to get married. She could have married him and said, this is a disgraceful thing to do in Israel. It can never be done. But this guy was boiling with lust. He wanted just to sleep with her. He eventually did. He overpowered her. And immediately he finished sleeping with her, he hated her. In fact, we all know by now that he hated her before he even slept with her, because that lusting for her is hatred. And he was a selfish person. Anybody who abuses children is a selfish person, and a person is full of hate. The person needs help. Amnon needed help, but unfortunately he had bad company. Their cousin Jonadab, who also gave him the advice of how to abuse his own sister. Now, I'm just mixing the points. What should have been done at that point? What do you do when you find out that your child has been abused? That's a very critical question, because sometimes we don't know what to do in such circumstances. We start screaming. Even though your heart may be jumping on the inside, just calm down and listen to them. And the most important one, believe them. Believe when they're telling you. Don't quickly think they might be lying because you trust the person that is a perpetrator. Don't believe a perpetrator more than your child. Believe your child and then take them through, because many children or many adults are still suffering today because nobody believed them. Some could not tell anybody, but I always say, don't even keep it a secret. We always should teach children not to keep any secrets. They should always tell. The only secret that they can keep is maybe when there's a pleasant, it's a surprise birthday for one parent, and the other parent is planning a surprise party of some form. But no other secret should be kept. Anything, whatever happens in school, like I said, I'm mixing things. As I remember, I will say them. It's also a good habit to talk to our children when they come back from school. Ask them, what happened in school today? There's no small thing you can pick up from the little that they are saying. If maybe, oh, I worked with the teacher separately, find out, oh, what did you do? What did the teacher say? Make it fun. But from there, you can pick something. It's not enough to say, how was school today? It was fine, and just leave it there. Have some time to find out. I always also like to share this, that I read in one article that I know parents are busy, but they said, if you spend 8 minutes a day with each child, that is enough. Only 8 minutes. So can you spare your 8 minutes in your busy schedule, in your busy life, and your busy lifestyle, and speak to your child for at least eight minutes, each child for 8 minutes? You don't have to count the minutes, but anyway, that just means have some time. It's less than 10 minutes. Just talk to them briefly. To be easy for them to trust you if you talk to them. And trust does not only come when there's a big issue. Trust starts from small issues. I'm going to share the story I always share for when I'm talking to people about this. You already know that it's not because I know everything, but from what I know, I'm learning, and I try to implement it in my life and my children's lives. So my first son, when he was 4 years old, he was obviously in preschool, and he had started, in Nigeria, they start to read at a very young age. So he had started reading. One time he comes home and he says, Mom, my teacher mentioned this boy in my class and said, well done, your daddy told me that you can read very well, well done. And my son felt like, how come my mom didn't tell the teacher that I can also read, I can read very well? So when he said that, but Mommy, you didn't tell my teacher, I immediately took my phone and called the teacher. I said, Miss So-and-so, I'm just calling to tell you that my son can read very well. And I explained to her later why I was doing that. But that is because I wanted my son to trust me, that when they confide in me, I will take action. So little things, no big thing, no big deal. If they tell you little things, that's nothing. Just make a big deal out of them so that they're able to trust you. Trust is very important. Trust is very important. That's why if they trust you, they will not keep secrets. And if they trust you, even when they're older, they're in their teenage years, when they don't want to talk to anybody, but when it is built at a young age, they'll be able to come to you. And when you talk about them, about issues at a young age, when they're older, they'll be able to come to you instead of running to their friends. They'll be able to run to you and tell you tell you about whatever they're going through. So Thomas Odile got to David's ears. He heard. That's where I get angry, because David heard about it. Yes, it was sad, but he didn't do anything. But then I was asking, what did I expect David to do? At least I expect the Bible to tell us that he spoke to Amnon and rebuked him for doing such to his sister, for defiling his sister. But we don't hear that. But when, sometimes gender inequality, when Absalom, the brother of Tamar, killed Amnon, we can see David being actively involved in the situation. But as for Tamar, she was forgotten. Nobody talked to her about the situation anymore. Nobody comforted her. Nobody made her feel better. She had lost her virginity, which was a serious thing. It still is, but even the way she lost her virginity, she had to change her garment so people would know. So she lived a secluded life because of what had happened to her, and nothing was done. That should not repeat itself in our lives. That's why we're talking about this. Something has to be done. And it is always hard to do something because people who are perpetrators are people who are family members, people who are friends. So, but I always say, even though you are trying to, you don't want this people this person to serve time in prison because you also love them. But think about many other children this person is going to abuse. Yes, you are protecting. If you're protecting them, you don't do anything, you don't take any steps towards making sure that he's getting a punishment he deserves for abusing your child, then you are opening an opportunity for many more children to be abused. So no matter how much you love, I have had meetings with such parents where a brother-in-law abused their child. They lived with them, and I always say when I get to that, I'm like, you know, we love our families, but sometimes I think we shouldn't be so open to allowing even family members to come and stay with us. This one, I'm just throwing it out there. It's not easy when you're in Africa or even abroad, because sometimes family members come to visit when they're abroad. And I've heard one lady, it happened like that. A pastor came to visit them in their own house, and it was a pastor who abused her in their own, under their roof, in their house. A pastor came from Africa, went abroad, and so really, when you have an extra person, you should be extra careful with a person. But I'm always like, why is this person living in your house anyway? If you can be able to pay rent, God, the same God who helped you. That's me just being really, extra. The same God who helped you get that money to pay rent for your own place can help that same person. Let them be encouraged to find their own place as well, so that you have peace in your home, your children are not tampered with. Moving on to the next one, we said, can children abuse each other at home, and how do you prevent it? I think I've already covered that. That's yes, they can. We have so many people, and it's even, it's sad because, like I said, when a child is being exposed to such, the body gets used to it, not because they are immoral. They become hypersexual. They start from that young age. Their body wants to keep experiencing it over and over again. And one thing I didn't know at first was like, how can they enjoy it? You don't understand. How can they enjoy it? If they're being abused, so why are they enjoying it? That's because sometimes it's not like in the case of Tamar, where Amnon forced himself into her. Sometimes it is, if you read Maya Angelou's story, you will find out that it was the gentle, one of the beautiful embrace that she received from her stepdad. And the touch was gentle. It was beautiful. The whisper, the love was still there in the atmosphere. And that's how the body gets used to it. And that thing keeps happening every day. A child would know. I always tell children, if a person wants to poke your eye, would you allow them? That's why you should not allow anybody touch your private parts, because it is your part. It belongs to you. Let them do whatever they want to do with their own parts, and don't allow them taking pictures of you whilst you're naked. Don't allow even your siblings to want to see you naked once they get to a certain stage where they can notice different parts of the body and everything. Don't allow them. If you can, you can separate their rooms. I know in some instances where people are forced to make children share the same room, which is, God will help those people, but it is not safe, because when whatever demonic thing comes upon another child, they would have this other child close to them. And it is so heartbreaking. This other lady, I was always older than her. She recently reached out to me and told me that, because we were always wondering who impregnated her. We never knew who the father of her child was. So she eventually told me that it was her brother, that child. So that's why we never knew. And her mom never really wanted to come out to say who the father of the child was. So it does happen. Siblings can also molest each other. So, but we need to talk to them. We need to keep talking to them, need to keep, it's not something that you only say once and then that's it. You have to keep, in fact, everywhere when they're younger, you have to keep, as they go to school, you have to keep talking to them every day, because children, they meet their friends who are exposed to different things. So keep talking to them until it is drilled in their minds, until it's like second nature to them. They know that they should protect themselves. I think I will end there, and then we can move on to the questions and answers section, because there's so much to say, but I believe when we are doing questions and answers, we will be able to talk more.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pastor Nomthi. Thank you for that great insight. So we are moving on to the questions. Would advise that we drop our questions in the chat room. However, if you'd like to speak, please indicate. I saw a raise of hand somewhere. Someone raised their hand. But I can't see that hand again. Jade, I think it was Jade. I'll unmute you now so you can speak. If you'd like to ask your questions directly, please indicate by a raise of hand. If you'd like to send your questions in the chat room, please drop your questions and we'll read it out to Pastor Nomthi. Jade, I'm unmuting you right now. Please go ahead and ask a question. Jade? Okay.
Good afternoon. I was actually just clapping, so thank you very much. But I do still have, I actually still have a question. So as a parent, is it appropriate if you had a similar experience to share with your child, to try and, like in terms of when you're trying to groom them or enlighten them about abuse, and then if it is, what age is it appropriate, like to explain to them that, you know, like this happened to me at a certain age, etc. Thank you.
Yes, I think it's good. It's good that you really mind the age, and it's usually not easy to say what age, because you know your children. Children develop at different stages. Some children are just smart from birth, and those ones sometimes are the ones really more exposed to danger because they behave older than their age. So for such a child, I wouldn't say quickly share your story with them. You can share a story as if it happened to some other auntie. Because when I talk to children about that, I do tell them that some adults went through this. Why? Because they didn't know anything about it. Nobody told them. So I am telling you this so that you know about it and you know how to prevent or protect yourselves from it happening. I don't know if it's okay. I wouldn't advise that you quickly share that story, because you might overburden them, because they would know, oh, my mom went through this. We don't want them to take over the burden. But if you tell your story and say it's some other auntie you know, or if it's a father, some other father you know, went through this, then I think that should be fine. As for the age, obviously, you teach them according, you don't quickly tell them like big things when they are 3 years old. They don't know yet. You're talking more about touches. You're not talking about, you know, even the language you use. You mind the language you use at that point, so you don't put more burden on them. I think that's it. Just use the language that's appropriate for each stage.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I have a question here.
Yeah.
A parent is asking that at what age do you advise that parents separate the rooms for their children? So you have a male child and a female child. At what age do you advise them to put them in separate rooms?
Well, if you have rooms already, why not at a young age, as young as 3, 4? You don't have to. If you have separate, let them get. In fact, I'm sure you know some. I don't know about black people. I know white people. A child from the hospital, they already have their rooms. They already have their room. We frown at that because we're not used to it. So let a child get used to sleeping by themselves from a young age. Because you know, at any age, or as long as you have room in your house, you can start separating them. And obviously, they should know that at that point, if they are scared, you should put monitor. Was it called monitor? I haven't had a child, a small child. The monitor, you put a monitor, we can see you, we can hear you from our room, so make them feel comfortable. So if you have room, but if you don't have room, that means you have to move. Once they are aware whether they are boys or girls, there's a stage where they are not aware whether they are boys or girls. They could know boys, girls, but they will not be aware that we actually have separate private parts. Once they are aware of that fact, then you start separating them. That's why it's not easy to know what age, because children develop at different stages. And don't give them a bath. Some parents still give their children a bath when they are 5 years, 5, 4. But when a person is 5 or 4, this other little girl I was talking to the other day started touching her brother when she was 4, maybe even less than that, because she was touched. So you can never be extra careful. Whatever measures you can put in place, do that as quickly as you can.
Thank you, Pastor Nomthi. Odukoya would like to speak.
Okay, good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
I have a toddler. She's 4 years old, and can you hear me?
There's noise in the background.
Yes, I've muted you.
Okay, good.
Okay, so I have a 4-year-old daughter, and she's very active. She's such that she doesn't go out. When she does, she's always wanting to hug people, jump on them, and all of that. So, and she relates more with guys whenever she's outside. So, like she jumps on them, and I don't want to situation that I'm correcting her in front of them, but at the same time, I don't know how to put it. I don't want her to withdraw from telling me things, or even when I scold her, I don't want her to get withdrawn, because I studied psychology, and all these things they tell us to be very careful how we talk to our kids, how we correct them, so they don't go and go into withdrawal mode and all of that. Then again, number 2, her dad is such that is so close to her, but whenever they are sleeping, he holds her the way he's meant to hold me, like the mother. And most times I'm always like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to correct my daughter. I don't know how to make her know that, okay, this is wrong, this is right, because her words are not even so clear yet. And I want to communicate with her so she would understand that meaning this is wrong, this is right. Don't let anybody touch you here. Don't let anybody touch you there. But I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I understand. I understand. But have you spoken to her about protecting herself?
Honestly,
have you ever had? You have?
No, I haven't, ma'am.
Okay, I think you may want to start from.
I don't even know if she would understand, because she's just 4 years old.
Yeah, 4 years. 4 years. Oh my goodness, she would understand.
Okay,
she would really understand. You would tell her she's a girl, and obviously they're boys. I don't know if you have a son. They're boys, and
they're just 2 girls.
Good, but you can say you are a girl. You know what? A grown girl becomes a woman. Yeah, that's why you're a woman, and your father is a boy and he's a man. I'm sure she would already understand that. And then to teach her that there are differences. We have things that we cannot do with boys when we are girls. It doesn't mean we stop loving them. We still love them, but there are things we can't do with them just to protect ourselves. Because if we don't, we cannot trust everyone, even woman or girl or men. Sometimes people can do bad things to children, not because they want to. They think they are helping children. And then you would just need. I wish you had my book, because I think you can actually buy it on Amazon. It's so easy because it was hard for me to talk to my children. They were about that age when I wrote my book, No, Don't Touch Me There. If you can please look for it, you will just read through. It's so easy to follow. It tells you about all this. Then you can explain in details everything. But for her, because she's a hugger and everything, you have to commend her for being a hugger and loving people. But tell her, after teaching her, obviously, you say, one of the things to watch out for, we can hug people, but you should be careful about hugging people. If you don't just hug anybody of opposite sex, I can give you whatever she likes. Give her some incentives. But I noticed that we greeted somebody and you greeted like a lady, and you didn't quickly hug them, and you were on their laps, and you still loved them, and I saw that you were still polite. I'm gonna give you this, I don't know, whatever she likes. I'm gonna give you this to celebrate the fact that you understand what we're talking about. You have to work with your child's understanding, because that's why perpetrators pounce on them quickly. They know that they don't know, they don't understand. So that's what I'm saying. Please get my book. It's so easy to read it and talk to your children, because it's hard. I also found it hard to have a conversation with my children. The first time I tried to, I was just tongue-tied. Like, what do I really say? But with the book, I was reading it as if I'm not the one telling them. I was reading it and explaining things in detail. So that would help you. But I think for her to, after hearing that, she might start thinking, and you should also praise her when she's not jumping into just any man giving them a hug. And what I teach children, no matter the age, is that even it's not it's not comfortable to talk about it. But I tell them that even I as a pastor, even me as a pastor, it doesn't mean don't trust people. You have to trust people. But when they start touching you inappropriately, don't allow them. Even if a person is your mother, is your father, is your pastor, is your imam, no matter who the person is, no matter how important they are in your life, do not allow them. And if they continue to touch you inappropriately, don't be scared to tell them. Don't be afraid that they will get into trouble. You want to be the one in trouble, because if you don't talk, you'll be in trouble, because it's going to spoil your mind. You're going to grow up and not be a happy adult. Do you want to be a happy adult? Yes, I want to be happy as an adult. So if you want to be happy, and you're going to protect yourself from this day, don't always think there's danger, but you should know that if danger presents itself, this is how you behave. So I would say a book would help take you through it. 4 years is not young at all. 4 years, he would understand.
One more thing, ma, I'm sorry. Is it okay for me to correct her in front of that person she's jumping on?
No. That's why my first question was, have you spoken to her about, have you started talking to her about sexual abuse? No, it's not okay to correct. That's why I say give her incentive. So you will just observe. If you have taught her, you have drilled her through it. When you see her, you go out and she doesn't do it anymore, you reward her for not doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Nomthi. At the end of the session, I'll show the slide that has her books and the number you can contact, and the how you can get her books and other materials. I'll show that at the end of the session. Okay. So we have another question here. Okay. How do we draw the line between child discipline and child abuse?
That's why I also mentioned it was like when we were growing up, we had, I mentioned how right now a school where I went to are in big trouble because they beat children. Obviously, there was also some sexual abuse, but sometimes parents in a bid to discipline their children, they do it excessively. They do it in anger. So how do you strike a balance between the two? You want to discipline them, and yes, you don't want to abuse. You don't want it to get to a level of abuse. Don't do it whilst you are still angry. I learned something from my mom and from all her friends. She used to go to church with. When you do something, they will not immediately punish you. They will call you. It's actually, that one is even bad. I mean, obviously they don't always discipline you, by beating you, but when they are going to beat you, they will call you. Worse, they say, go and get your own cane or get a belt yourself. You don't want to get something that's going to inflict pain on yourself. And you come here, they sit down. So what you did, you explain what the child did wrong. This is what you did, this and that. And I have warned you so many times before. Now, I've told my children that I even showed them in the Bible that there is foolishness bound in a child's heart, and a rod can remove that foolishness away from them. That's why once in a while, I would have to use it, and make them understand why you're doing it. You're doing it in love. They are saying that you're not angry. And what they used to do, my mom and her friends, that used to make me angry, is to pray before they now start beating you. They will pray, commit this act into God's hands. Oh my goodness. And I've actually practiced it myself, because I remember, okay, so let's pray. And then you pray for a child that as you are going to do this to them, they would always remember not to do what you've told them not to do. And they would walk, they would have this behavior, you speak into their lives. And when you're done, you do it. That way, when you're not angry, you've even prayed, you've committed it into God's hands. There's no way you're going to beat them anyhow. So discipline yourself not to beat them whilst you are angry, or speak anyhow whilst you are angry. That's why we have to have the fruit of the Spirit, which is patience.
Thank you very much, Pastor Nomthi. Let's see other questions that we have here. I think you touched on the one that has to do with siblings, because a lot of questions there about siblings abusing. So I think you touched on that when you talked about Tamar and Ammon.
Yes.
Okay. So there's a question here. Is it okay or advisable for a child to have their nanny sleep with them in the same room? The nanny, the caregiver, is it advisable for a caregiver to sleep with the child in the same room?
Sometimes it is unavoidable. You can't avoid it because of space, and also depending on whether the child knows that. That's why I said, when you speak to your children, speak to your domestic workers as well. Let everyone know that this is what happens. Some adults can do these things to children, and an adult could be anybody. It could be your nanny, it could be your mother, it could be your father, anybody at all. So that in a case where you cannot avoid it, because we can't, there's no hidden fast rule at that age. When they're still young, maybe they can still sleep with them, but they can talk. They can tell you, because when they're younger than that, you should still be sleeping with them. You should, at least if you don't have space, have a cot bed in your room where you sleep with your children. But when they're at a stage where they can't sleep with you, but there's another room, but still you don't have many rooms in the house where the nanny can sleep as well, I think it's about talking about it. Then let the nannies know when you're talking about that. Even nannies abuse children. When children are asleep, so the nanny will be scared. Will be scared as well. This once, because that like I said earlier on, it thrives in secrecy. When there are secrets, because most times perpetrators will make a child feel, one, like they're important. Two, they even tell them not to tell anybody. If you tell somebody your mom is going to die, your dad is going to die, a bad thing is going to happen to you, that means you're a bad girl. Talk about all those things. When you tell on somebody, that does not mean they are bad or you want them to look bad. You are actually helping them. Even when they report each other as children, it can be annoying when they report each other as children. But encourage reporting, even though it's annoying. Because when you report somebody, it's not because you hate them. You want to help them to stop that negative behavior. So it's all about, we cannot, this is planet Earth, it's the world we live in. There are some instances where we cannot be extra careful. There's nothing we can do. Sometimes, like I said, we put all security in our houses, we put CCTV, but some people will still go beyond that and still commit crime, but make sure that you have put measures, especially talking measures, around the house.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pastor Nomthi. So there's a question here. My kids know that, okay, I think she's still typing. Okay, yeah. My kids know that they shouldn't allow anyone to touch them. However, how do you manage a situation when a child that has been abused is always around your kids? Children that have been abused, if their parents do not know or help them, will always other kids. So how do you manage a situation where a child that has been exposed to abuse is always around kids?
Actually, I wouldn't advise that such a child gets around. If that child is around your kids, make sure that there's an adult who's aware that that child has gone through that situation, so that the adult is always keeping an eye on that child. But that child who has been abused needs help. Did you say the parents don't know? The child's parents don't know?
Yes, she said the parents do not know that the children that have been abused, if their parents do not know, yes, that the parents do not know that their child has been abused.
I think you have to make the parents know that a child has been abused. Once you know it's not an easy. In fact, maybe you may not directly talk to the parents. Talk to somebody who can talk to the parents, so that the news, it does not startle them. So because they have a right to know. They have a right to, so they can help that child. That would even help us. You can't, depends how close, maybe it's a family member. It's hard to say suddenly that child should not come to your house, but preventative measures should be put in place to make sure that there's an adult watching over that child. And it's very important that the parents get to know. Even if you're suspecting, you're not sure, let the parents know. Talk to somebody who will gently break the news to the parents, so that that child receives help. They will need to receive help. They need to talk about it. Because definitely because you can't just say the child should not suddenly come near your children. Mm-hmm. There will be a fight. Why are you saying they should not play with your children? What is happening? And you can't just tell your children, this one has been abused. This case needs wisdom to be dealt with. Let there be an adult and let the parents know.
Thank you, Pastor Nomthi. There's another question here. Is it okay for a boy of 8 years to sleep with his sisters of 5 and 3 years on the same bed?
I think we've spoken about it already. If you can avoid it, please do. Please do avoid it. I wouldn't advise that they sleep in the same bed, because he's 8 years old. That person is is maybe in year 3 or year 3 or year 4. That person knows so much already. They know so much already. They might if you have not spoken to your children about sexual abuse, they might, God forbid, something might happen. So it's always better to be extra. There are some parents who say, oh my goodness, your book has made our children say no when they're giving them a bath. No, don't touch me there. And I'm always like, I'd rather they are extra about it than they are victimized at a young age. So you can never be too careful. Please, 8 years old is too old for them to be sleeping in the same room, on the same bed. Because what if this, erection happens anytime. Erection can just happen on the boy, and you don't know what the boy already knows. So it's better to prevent it from happening.
Thank you, Pastor Nomthi. So there's this other question. There's a lot of buzz about girl child abuse. Parents sometimes they seem to neglect the boy child, in quotes, in that area. So someone asked a question that she has a friend who has male children, and she always says that, oh, I don't have a problem. My children, they are boys. They cannot be exposed, so I'm not bothered. So what do you have to say to such parents? Is it only the girl child that we should be conscious of and always protect? I know you touched a bit on it, but I'd like to talk some.
It's not at all. The parents should still be aware. Statistics vary. Some say 1 in 4 girls will be abused by the time before they're teenagers, and 1 in 7 boys. So 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 7 boys. So you see, it happens to boys as well. And boys, in fact, it's not, even for a girl, it's not only a person of an opposite sex that can abuse a child. Sometimes the same sex, especially these days, same sex, a person might be a woman and abuse a girl. a man can abuse a boy and a man can abuse a girl. So it goes across board. It doesn't have to be, it goes across the board. It doesn't have to be only girls. I gave an example of a lady who was abused herself, and she had children, a boy and a girl. She paid more attention to her daughter than she did on her son. And she was really afraid when she heard that it happens to the boys as well. It's so easy really to talk about girls. It happens to boys. And why I think boys' own is not so known is because they keep secrets more than girls. Boys don't easily talk. They don't even, girls can start telling their friends about things that happen to them. But boys, they can hold on to these things. And the person, the wife, you don't know why the person is so angry, but something happened and they have never spoken about it. So whether you have boys or you have girls, you should still please be alert, teach them, and be aware of your environment. I mean, I know many men who were abused. You know the story of the Catholic Church. They were abused by the priests. Not only the Catholic Church, men by their uncles. They are abused by their siblings. They were abused by their fathers. A boy was abused by the same-sex person. So we should be careful. Actually, it's a lie of the devil to make a parent think that way.
Thank you so much, Pastor Nomthi. Okay, I think that's all we have. Do we have any raise of hand somewhere? Do we have any question from any parents? You want to ask any question? Okay. Yes. Okay. I think that's all we have for the questions. So I'll quickly.
There's a body or ball, something who has their hand up.
Okay. And okay, I will mute you now. Okay. Yes. Everybody, please go ahead.
Okay. Good day, all.
Good day.
Good day.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Please, I can hear you.
Okay. My question is, how do I put it, for an 8-year-old boy that has been abused in the past by your help? How do I mean abused? He's had this, he's a boy that has been abused by the help. I'm trying to put the picture right. So the 8-year boy has been abused. The help has been trying to, make him have sex with her. How do you disabuse? How do you bring that boy back to sanity, back to where the boy was before? Is this something that can be done? I don't know if you got my question.
Yes, I got the question. That's why my passion, I think I said earlier on, my passion and my motto is prevention is better than cure. It is harder when a child has gone through it, but it is not something that cannot be done. You need counseling. That child needs counseling, professional help, people who can talk to the child and make the child understand that they are not a bad person. The main thing is for that child to know that they are not like their body wants to do it because the body is groomed, is used to it. If they're still feeling like they want to do it, it is not because they're bad. That's how a human body works. And tell them that if you're gonna, I'm just talking about this now without professional help, you as a parent, talking to them, make them feel comfortable. That anytime they feel they have these feelings, they can come talk to you about them, so you can take him the feelings. But always make sure that you know that it is for him to feel that way, even though it's not a normal thing for an 8-year-old to have such feelings. But because of what has happened to him, that can heal his mind to know that, okay, it's normal. But then don't act on it. Also talk to him not to act on his feelings, because they are not, if that nanny did it to him and he's feeling that way and is not happy about it, if he also did it to somebody else, it will make that person sad. And he's a good boy. He would not want to make people feel sad. He would not want people to grow old and thinking about bad things because of what he did to them. But more than anything, the child will need professional help. And obviously, I don't know, but prayer, whatever, I believe many people pray, whatever religion a person is, prayer, that God will remove and wipe away those, that experience in the boy's mind. It's not something that can, but with God, all things are possible. God is a miracle working God. It's not something that easily leaves people like that. Because like I said, people are scarred forever. They don't forget. They may be healed. They may feel better. Because anything that happens, as he grows older, when he sees somebody who looks like that nanny, something might be triggered in him. Or somebody does something that nanny used to do, something might be triggered. But with the professional would take him through all those things, like, okay, there could be triggers. When this happens, you might feel this way, so that they know that they're not mad. That's the main thing, that you know how it is when you're frustrated, you have something you're going through. You want to talk to somebody who would make you feel like you're not mad, you're not just out of the ordinary. Actually, whatever you're feeling is genuine and you need help with it. I think, am I able to answer that one? Body.
Yeah,
But
thank you.
keep reassuring. A parent would have to keep reassuring that child. We keep just like any child who has no emotional. This one you have to do double work by keep reassuring, keep praising good behavior, keep praising, and then don't shy away from the situation. Keep from time to time talk about it as well, in a way that will make them feel comfortable.
Thank you very much, Pastor Nomthi. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I have another question here. How do we help the abused child to cope with the mental effects of abuse?
Yeah, I think that's what I just explained, really, because those are mental effects. Because when you start, a child may start feeling depressed, feeling sad out of the blue. But if you take that child to a professional who can help them, they know how to take them through such things. But the little that you can also do is to acknowledge their feelings. When they're feeling sad, try and, I was listening to one lady, she said she grew up in a happy home, but she just had depression. She learned that even though people helped her and she went to professionals, but they didn't tell her how to get out of that depression when it would suddenly descend upon her. But she has now learned, and she's teaching other people that when it happens, just recognize it and snap out of it. It's just like sin. When sin is entering, when you're attracted to something, I'm hoping I'm talking to people who understand what I mean. But anyway, sin is sin across the board. So if you're seeing something, it's not a sin to see something or to have a thought about something. Maybe you can have a bad thought. But if you start entertaining that thought, then eventually it becomes sin because you will act on it. So that child might need to be taught, okay, this will happen because of what you have been through. But what will keep that child at peace is to know that they're not mad. Whatever I'm repeating this again, I've said it. It is to know that they are not mad. It happens. It happens, and it's different from everyone. That's why if ever they feel a certain way, they should come and talk to you. Let them be things that you can do. Or if you feel like you're about to get disturbed by it, watch your favorite cartoon or read a book, whatever. You know your child, you know what they like. Or just do something that will distract your mind from feeling depressed. And mainly just keep talking as you are taking them to professional help, because like I said, it's something that never goes away, unfortunately. In my language as a Christian, I say it's a demonic thing, because most times when it happens when a child is younger, it will happen again. It's as if there is that stamp that the devil has put on that child's forehead. Each time they would easily be exposed to such situations where they were abused. That's why you find that when a person was abused, or maybe they were raped, again, they will find themselves in that situation. I don't know if you've heard of that. they'll find themselves in that situation again. Why? I believe my own explanation is that it's demonic, it's a spirit. So if you're a child of God, also break that spirit, whatever familiar spirit that has attached itself to your child. You can also break it with prayer. And there's nothing that God cannot do.
Thank you so much, Pastor Nomthi. I think this is the last question we have here, at least what I see on the chat. I'm sorry I came in late, this parent says. My question is, how can one continuously educate one's child or children who are in the boarding house and they come home, come in contact with kids who manage being abused based on the experiences they come home to share? Content-wise, I mean. I think.
Can you say that? Let me recite again. Let me hear the question.
Okay, so she said, how can one continuously educate one's child or children who are in boarding school, they're in the boarding house, and come in contact with kids who manage being abused based on the experience they come home to share? So, well, the kids come home to share some experiences or something, and so how do you manage kids who are in the boarding house and they are in contact with other kids who have been abused?
If you can't help it, maybe they are siblings or something. It's the only way is talk about these things. I think when you when you remember things that happened to you, it was because you couldn't talk to anybody. Things that you kept secret, you couldn't talk to anyone about it. If they are siblings, I should hope or believe, or not hope, I should think that they are aware that the other siblings know about what happened to them. So before they even come and mix with them, you talk to the child who has been abused. That these are, I think I'm just repeating the same thing, but it doesn't matter. These are the things that sometimes happen to people who have been abused. But you do not have to inflict the same pain to somebody else. When you feel your feelings in a certain way, come and talk to me about it, or talk to somebody you can trust about it. And obviously, talk to the other children coming from the boarding school. You can't protect them by not telling them. You don't have to, if you feel like you're exposing your other child's secret, talk to them about sexual abuse so that they are never found in a place. That it can happen between siblings, it can happen between parents and children. It can happen, anybody can be a perpetrator. So once you tell them that, they are aware. I think there's really nothing that you can do except telling, just like the gospel. There's nothing else you can do but just tell people there's heaven and there's hell, and then it's up to a person to choose. But as long as you have spoken about it, as long as you can even find a movie or a age appropriate movie for everyone to watch, so we can start talking about such things. It's mainly about talking about it. Prevent it from happening by talking. You cannot always be there with them 24/7, but once when you keep saying something to a child, they will remember. And tell them why you are telling them, because there are consequences. These are the consequences, and you don't want them to go through that pain, and also you don't want them to have to face those consequences in life, because it's harder once they face. So it's better they keep themselves and learn to understand, not to judge. Also, you can teach them not to judge whoever has been abused, because it was not their fault. So you can tell the person, it's not your fault you were abused. Tell the other people, don't judge people who have been abused, because people judge people for being abused. They feel like they were negligent or something. That's another one for another day. But teach them not to judge them. And whilst you're not judging the person, you're also not exposing yourself to danger.
Thank you so much, Pastor Nomthi. Thank you. I think that's the last question we have. Is there any other parents who would like to say something? While we are on the lookout for parents who would like to say something, I'll quickly share the slide that has Pastor Nomthi's materials. I'll quickly share that slide right away so we can see how to have access to her materials. Thank you, Pastor Nomthi. We're so glad for that wonderful session. So these are the lines you can call. You can reach out to this number on my screen and at Yazi_Wednesday, or you call this line or send an email to info@yaziwednesday.org. Those are some of her best-selling books. No, Don't Touch Me There. Fantastic book. I think every home already has that book. I have them in my home. I know a lot of other parents have that book. It's very easy to teach our children how to stay away from abuse and how to take care of their body parts with this book. So parents, there you have it. Those are her materials. You can get in touch with those numbers and also call, reach out, send an email. Other books she has: Help, They Are Fighting Again, Boys and Girls Are Different But Equal, Children Saving the Planet, Some Children Have Additional Needs. Those are her other books. So we can reach out to the number there and send an email to get the books. Thank you, thank you. Okay, I have two participants with hand raised. Quickly, I will unmute you. We have just a few minutes. Pastor Nomthi, I hope you still have some time to give to us.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay,
yes.
okay. So I'll try to get the parents with the hand raised. Okay, we have Adetola Bukno.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, good afternoon, Pastor Nomthi. Thank you for spending time with us, and to Ediri for organizing this. So I attended sort of like a parent enlightenment kind of program for kids, and you know, I learned that you need to teach your kids early about, you know, sex education and sex abuse, and I was told you could even start as early as 1.5 years. So I'm trying to do what I can, but I wonder what is age appropriate to tell a kid that is about 3 or 4 years old, other than you know, your private part is your private part, nobody can touch it, there are dangerous consequences if anybody does.
It is true. You should start talking to them as soon as they can understand, obviously with the age appropriate information at each stage. She was saying, in fact, I started talking to my children around that age 3, 4, and I couldn't really talk to them about it. It was hard. Like, what do I say? But after writing a book, it was easier. I could read a book and then explain further according to what they understood. Because when you talk to them, don't think they don't know anything. Let them ask you questions, or just ask them questions to see what they know. They know something. There's something that they can tell you about it as well. So you can tell them, like I said, it depends on how developed they are. They know about their private parts. They know that not to be touched. That's mainly that. You don't have to, at that stage, you don't have to tell them that sex means a man penetrating your vagina and this, because no, I don't think at that age you should get to that, because sometimes information may be right, but it may be too much for a child's mind, because that's like in school. You take it a step at a time. You still teach everything they need to teach, but at a certain level. So that level is not a level where you can tell them this is how to have a sex. Don't even show them images. In fact, I told my children, don't even check on Google, don't check for sex, because it just occurred to me. They use the internet anyhow, even in school. They're always on the internet. So it just occurred to me, oh my goodness, they are hearing about sex, we're talking about sex. They might just Google sex. When they Google that, they would see images. So I told them, I believe, I'm hoping they have not Googled it. So don't ever Google sex, because you will see things that will destroy your mind. And they do destroy, because once a child starts seeing those pictures, then they will be hooked into pornography. People say it's so easy to be hooked into pornography and you don't want to create that pornographic mind in your, if I can say so, in your child. So you have to still use, you can use appropriate language. You can say penis, let them know it's a penis, let them know it's a vagina at 4, they should know. A penis is a penis, a vagina is lips, whatever it is that you need to know to tell them. But don't go deep. They don't need it at that deep, at that level. I don't know if I'm able to explain that one well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Nomthi. I can see another parent raising their hand here. Adol, I will unmute you now. Please go ahead and speak.
All right, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Pastor Nomthi. Thank you
Good
so much for
afternoon.
the message. Yes, my question is, I have 3 girls, and the first is 11, and she's rapidly developing. And most times I find it uncomfortable when she dresses up in front of her sisters who are 8 and 5 respectively. So I want to, and they start asking her questions like, maybe why is your breast bigger than mine? Why are you having pubic hair and all that? So I want to know if I'm being overreactive or if it's time for me to, have them in their separate rooms. Thank you.
Well, it's actually good that they get to know about the development at this age. I think you can talk, except for heavy stuff, but you can, whatever you talk to them about at this age, they're said 5 and how old? In 5 years' time, they too, depending, because sometimes it could be in 2 years' time. Some children start developing breast at 8, even 9. Actually, I had, mine, I was 9, and it was like, oh my goodness, my classmates did not have breasts at that time, and I already had breasts at 9. So you never know when their own is going to happen. So it is, knowing your children depends on how they are, even emotionally, their emotional development. But I would say, just on a light note, talk about it, that you two are going to be like, they don't have to stare at her, but they should know about the changes that are going to happen. Your sister is already 11. You are also going to end up having, sometimes it happens to people when they are 10, 11, 8. Let them expect it anytime, not to make them afraid. I don't know if not to make them afraid, because nobody expect, thankfully, I didn't feel, I would only feel bad about it when people would comment about my breast and say, oh, she has breast already. It was a big deal. And nobody ever spoke to me. Thank God. God just gave me a strong mind. I wasn't disturbed about it because it was such a big deal. Even when I started menstruating, I started before my friends. I would still go out and play with them. And nobody was teaching me all these things. So it's better for them to be prepared. It's not something to be scared about. It's not something to be hidden. Yeah, it's not something to be hidden. So just on a light note, talk about it. Let them expect, because they all might be earlier than their sisters.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pastor Nomthi. Parents, so please bear with us. We have questions just dropping in the chat room. So let's try to take as many questions as we can so every parent is happy. At what age should I go deep into the sex talk? That's a parent asking, Pastor Nomthi.
According to your child's developmental stage, how much understanding does your child have? When my son started asking me how, he just out of the blue said, how did you give birth to me? Where did I come from? I know I was in your tummy, but how did I come out from your tummy? He was about 4, and I thanked God I had a C-section when I had him, because the answer was easy. The doctor cut my tummy, he brought you out, and he sewed me back in. It was an easy answer. But I now realize when he asked it again that he had started hearing some things about how a child is born, a baby is born. A baby comes from your vagina. Like, wow, because they mix with other children. There's never an early, I learned then that it's not too early. It was okay when he was 4, but now they're talking about some other children already know, I don't know how, they already know a child comes from it. So when he asked again, I a vagina, but you know, I don't have to explain much because I don't know how it happened. Remember, I told you that my own, the doctor cut my tummy and brought you out, trying to just to protect them. But it depends on how you want to explain to your children. That's what I'm saying. Don't, even at 8 or whatever age, before they're teenagers, those images just, I have spoken about sex. I will speak about sex in the house because they already know it's a boy and a girl sleeping together. That's all there is right now. But for you, because some people go an extra mile, I don't believe in it. There are different schools of thought. Some people believe that you have to show them images, show a penis erecting, show a child, this is how you have to do foreplay. You know, all those things. We don't need to, I don't believe they have to know about foreplay, that you have to feel, and when you do foreplay and you touch a girl with your, they go to that extent. Touching a girl, you have to touch with your fingers, arouse a girl. When the girl is aroused, they start secreting some juice in there. All that stuff that I don't believe they need when they are below 10, except because some schools teach sex education and they go deep. They even teach children to masturbate. So I think the best thing is to keep talking to your children. The whole, if you have, I don't know our crowd. I wanted to say the Holy Spirit will make you aware of how much they know or how much they are ready. How much they're ready to hear. I don't know about how much they're ready to hear. You keep pushing boundaries. You just keep pushing boundaries as each talk takes place. But don't immediately tell all the graphic things about sex, because their mind is not ready yet. I don't know if that answers the question.
Thank you, Pastor Nomthi. I believe that answered the question. But
yeah, I hope so.
Hearing that asked that question can also raise her hand to speak if
because if I said something that makes you think of another thing that I have not answered.
Okay, so there's another question here. Should parents have a discussion as husband and wife about abuse and agree between themselves instead of being suspicious of one another and protecting children from each other? We have heard of stories of mothers telling their daughters to report their dads if he touches the daughter anyhow, and the father was embarrassed when an innocent situation occurred with the father giving the daughter a bath. And should the education happen with both parents talking to children together about abuse?
That's a very good one. Both parents should talk about it and agree on how they're going to deal with it in the house. Obviously you trust your husband trusts you, you trust yourself. You know you would not want to harm your child, even though some partners cannot be trusted. But instead of going behind their back and talking to children and telling them to tell you, you're creating division in the house. Better you talk about it. And in fact, to make it even better, you and your husband talk about it after you've spoken about it in private. Talk about it in front of the children. Let them know that these are the measures. You know, when your child, depending on how old the child is, when your dad is giving you a bath, maybe 2 years old, he's not trying to abuse you. But there's a certain age, obviously, but the only way a person, you would know when a touch is becoming uncomfortable. Don't have to dwell on it forever. There are some, I actually know this couple, the lady was so paranoid. She kept thinking her husband was abusing her daughter. And obviously it destroyed their marriage, because she could not stand. Each time the husband was carrying her daughter, she would feel like the husband she would storm into the room. What are you doing? What are you doing to my? I don't know what caused her have that. Maybe she was abused by her father. I don't know. But you know, we should not walk in fear. Out of all this, we should not walk in fear. You know, the Bible says that which I fear the most happened to me. Sometimes if you're so fearful, that thing that you are so fearful about ends up happening to you, which will not be our portion. But don't walk in fear. don't make the children paranoid. Talking about these things is just to create an awareness, not to make people afraid of life. It's just to create an awareness so that should anything happen like that, everybody knows what to do. So talk together. Yes, you have to have a discussion.
Thank you so much, Pastor Nomthi. Thank you. There's another question here. My 4-year-old daughter expresses love at all times to her dad. And she's always like, I can't sleep without you, Dad. This pisses me off. I know it's an innocent expression, but how do I stop her from doing this?
So I can't sleep without you. Does that mean they're sharing a room with Dad and Mom?
Okay, so the parents, I don't know, the parents,
if they're sharing a room, it's time.
No,
sorry,
they're not sharing the same room with the parents.
Oh, okay. So why can't? Okay, maybe bedtime stories. Maybe I don't know what she means by I can't sleep without you, Dad. What does she? I don't know. So maybe she means maybe Daddy is maybe reads them bedtime stories, or he gives them a hug before they go to bed. I don't know what it is, but it sounds innocent. If they don't sleep in the same room, it sounds innocent. If they don't sleep in the same room and you talk about these things every week, remember I said on a weekly basis, keep talking about these things. But you can't tell her that she shouldn't say that about her dad. In fact, you should praise her for being loving, for loving you and loving her dad. But just watch. If you have some suspicions, just keep watching. But the main thing, talk about it. Not talk about, when I say talk about it, talk about sexual abuse or just sex education. Teach them. But their father, if you know your husband is free, he doesn't sleep in the same room and he doesn't tiptoe at night and go to the child's bedroom, and you have not noticed any bruises on a child, because you would see if something has happened, you will see bruises, you will see maybe in their private part they will complain, there will be some pain, or it will just come out. If you keep talking about it, something will come out. So I don't believe something is happening. I think she's just a friendly girl, and maybe Daddy is an outgoing person. So you two, if they feel like that about Daddy, you two pull up your socks now, yeah. Be out there, do bedtime, come up with interesting games that they really can't do without. I'm not saying be in a competition with
That's a competition.
But, don't be in a competition, but raise the standard too.
Okay, so she said he always holds her when he returns from work until she falls asleep. That's why she says, I can't sleep without you, Dad.
Oh, okay. One time you should also just make your husband relax. You two hold her. It goes back. Let's share. It goes back to talking. So I don't know how free you are with your husband, but I would think this is the time to also talk about it. So that because she's growing, so you can also share that. I don't know. You know your husband. If he's a free person, he will not start fighting because of that. You have to talk about it. But if he's a person you will not be able to talk about it with, you just use wisdom. We know we have our wisdom. Create an opportunity where you're the one holding her. Make it interesting. I don't know how you can make it interesting that she likes also being held by any parent, by either you or him, not only him. Because that's not a good idea, that she only falls asleep in his arms. It's good, but not so good because of what we know in life.
Thank you, Pastor Nomthi. Even though she has added here that, yes, that she holds her sometimes, but she won't fall asleep.
Brush hair.
She won't fall asleep until her daddy holds her.
Brush hair. Please, don't stop. Brush her head, stroke her. They don't know. Read. Go and read or check some books. Check internet what you can do. I don't know. You have to do something. So it's really, you really have to do something. Yes. She will sleep in Jesus' name. She will sleep. She will sleep when you're holding her. She must. We are commanding her to sleep as well when you're holding her.
Thank you, Pastor Nomthi. I see a parent here with a hand raised. I don't know if this was a previous hand raise. Aduola, do you want to say something? Adwola, I can see your hand raised. Okay, maybe it was a previous one.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pastor Nomthi.
You're welcome.
That's all we have. That's all the questions I can see in the chat room. And I think all the parents here are also very happy. Thank you for such an insightful session. Parents, the replay will be made available very soon, and we will send it to all the parents that are here and to other parents that were not able to make it. Thank you, Pastor Nomthi. Thank you, parents, for your time. Thank you for joining the session. Okay, so thank you so much, Pastor Nomthi. That's from a parent. Another parent,
oh, you're welcome.
For sharing with us, Pastor Nomthi. This was really helpful. I'm sure parents want a part 2, Pastor Nomthi, which is very soon.
No problem.
Thank you, ma. Thank you, ma.
All right, you're welcome. God bless you.
Thank you. So parents, have a beautiful weekend. We'll send the recording to every parent as soon as it's available. Thank you.